most of what people claim to be moral virtue is merely their fear to do anything that they would actually like to do that society would deem inappropriate. It has nothing to do with morality whatsoever. And what they do is say, I'm moral, not I'm cowardly. And part of the reason, for example, why people are so attracted to bad guy stories, you know, criminals and serial killers and all those sorts of people, vampires, you know, that whole destructive force, is because those characters aren't fearful. They're just what people would be like if they weren't afraid.
There's a certain utility in being able to do virtually anything and then to control yourself.
If you're wandering around naively with your eyes closed and you run into someone who's really psychopathic, they'll take you apart and you'll have no defense against it whatsoever because you're too blind and naive. And if you encounter someone like that and they leave you in the ashes, which they might, it's certainly possible that you'll never recover from it. You just will not be able to handle the aftermath, but also you won't be able to handle the fact that something like that could actually happen.
Like, lots of times endurance is what you have. When things are really going badly, and they will, you have the ability to put one goddamn foot in front of the other. And maybe you're even manifesting negative emotion about it, but that doesn't mean you stop. You don't stop. And that's not just a cardinal element of masculinity, although it is in the symbolic sense. It's a cardinal aspect of the development of a forthright character. You want your children to be able to endure. We're so naive. It's like, no, you want them to be happy. It's like, yeah, fine, but what about when they're not happy? What about when they have a sick child? What about when someone's dying? You know, like, what? Well, they should be happy. It's like, God, it's thin gruel. It's a leaky boat. And so you train stalwart individuals to endure. Now, can that go too far? Well, obviously, you know, I mean, every culture can degenerate into cruel tyranny, you know, and they can engage in sadistic rituals that have this justification to train endurance. But what's wrong with endurance? When you have people relying on you, including yourself, you don't get to quit. People die if you quit. They suffer if you quit. It's like,
if you're a parent,
yes, of course. And you know, and this is why I like the Christian metaphor, at least in part. It's like, pick up your bloody cross and walk up the hill. You know, and of course there's suffering and catastrophe associated with that. It doesn't mean that men should pretend that they don't have emotions, but you know, that's so obvious that it hardly needs to be discussed.
There's always a snake in the garden. So then the question is, do you get obsessive about chasing out the snakes? Or do you learn how to engage in combat with them? And that's the right answer. You can try to make things orderly and tidy and safe as you can, but you know, you don't make your children safe, you make them strong. And you do that even by setting them an optimal challenge, because you can't, if you're going to have a bounded place, there's going to be snakes in it. And so you can try to minimize them, but there's an eradicable element of chaos, and the way that you deal with that is to strengthen the individual, essentially. This is one of the things that's so interesting about the response of young men in particular. It's like, I'm selling the most unsaleable possible package of messages, right? It's like, there's something true about Christianity. It's like, yeah, sure, right. I'm going to sell that to young men. No, that's not going to happen. I'm going to tell them that they should adopt more responsibility and stop being so damn impulsive and tell the truth, and they're all going to be like really happy about that. Well, that's what's happening. So I don't know why it is, but it's partly because I can actually tell a story about responsibility. You know, people have been told for 50 years that the meaning in your life comes from freedom and rights. It's like, no, that's not right. I mean, sometimes it's right because you're so goddamn oppressed that, you know, the system has to be fractured to give you a little bit of freedom. But at the moment, that's not the case. The case is that you're going to find most of your meaning by picking up your damn load and stumbling forward. And it's like, that's how you respect yourself. And that's a huge part of what the book is about. It's like, there's a lot wrong with you. You're fragile, you crumble, you age, you die, you're weak, you're ignorant, and you're touched by malevolence, and a lot of it is willful. It's like, what the hell, man? How can you look at yourself in the mirror? You're such a miserable mess. And the answer to that is, pick up something heavy. right? Something that's a benefit to you and the rest of the world, and stumble forward mightily with it. And then maybe you can tolerate your miserable existence without becoming a blight on reality.
Well, right. Everyone knows life is hard. And it's not just hard, it can be unbearably hard. And it's worse than hard, because sometimes the hardship is inflicted upon you by yourself or by someone close to you, or sometimes by an enemy, but sometimes by a friend. You know, you get betrayed, and it's not just that it's hard. You're also subject to evil. You're subject to malevolence, and that makes it even worse. And everyone knows this. And so you need something to set against that. You need a noble way of being to set against that. But what's optimistic is that having established the truth of the matter, the suffering of life and the malevolence that's part of it, you can also discover that living a meaningful life in the face of that, a responsible, meaningful, truthful life, is actually possible, and it actually works. That's the thing. That's the optimistic thing. You know, it's not so bad to say to people, look, we've got a real problem here. It's no joke. It's a dead serious problem. It's the fragility of your life and hell all balled up into one thing. But that's okay, because there's an antidote to it. There's something you can do about it, and you could start today. And, well, that's what I try to detail out in 12 Rules for Life and in my lectures online as well. And I believe it to be the case. As pessimistic as I am about the nature of human beings and our capacity for atrocity and malevolence and betrayal and laziness and inertia and all those things, I think we can transcend all that and set things straight. And I think that people can literally start today, that life is dreadful suffering tainted with malevolence. All right, so everyone can agree on that. That's a little harsh, but it seems accurate. Okay, fine, that's the baseline. All right, now, how do you solve that problem? Well, you have to embark upon an adventure that's so remarkable that it justifies that. So you can say to yourself, this is rough, man. There's a lot of misery along with this, a lot of betrayal, a lot of malevolence. It's like, doesn't matter, it's worth it. You know, and you watch yourself in a week or a month, and you'll see that there are times when you feel that way about your life. You think, man, this is tough. Life is hard, but boy, it's really worth it. So that's what you want. You want a goal that makes your life worth it. That's not the same as being happy. The idea that you should pursue happiness, that's for children, for naive children. It's a foolish idea. You want to instead live your life in a manner that justifies its suffering. So, and you know, I've had thousands of people write me now, and thousands of people talk to me as well, because it's up in those numbers now. And they're saying, well, look, I've been watching your YouTube videos and listening to the information that you're providing, and I decided to start putting my life together. So I tried. I've been trying really hard for the last 3 or 4 months, and it's really working. You know, I'm getting along better with my girlfriend, and maybe we're getting married, and I have a job now, and I'm pursuing it, and I'm out of my nihilistic pit of despair. And, you know, thank God for that. What a lovely thing to hear from people.